Diamond Heads, welcome to In the Zone podcast. I am your host, Diamond Zone, and we're just going to wait a couple of seconds, up to a minute. Then we're going to get started with today's topic. So just sit tight, hold on, and I'll be right back so I can get other things ready. All right. Welcome to In the Zone podcast. My name is Diamond Zone. Well, I should have said this is your host. This is your host, Diamond Zone. Welcome to In the Zone podcast. Now, today's topic is really important because, well, not only June has three important events. June has three important events, which are Pride Month, juneteenth, and Men's Mental Health Awareness. Again, those three lands on June. I'm going to be solely talking about men's mental health awareness because men's mental health is really not too acknowledged when it comes to mental health in general. Yeah, and it is and regardless, mental health in the United States is looked down upon. How I see it in general, men's mental health is looked down upon. Well, actually, regardless, mental health is looked down upon. Even though that it is starting to get some traction, it's still looked down upon as being lazy or not doing enough or not going outside or playing on your video games. But that isn't the case. There's a lot when it comes to mental health, especially when it comes to any type of neurodivergent disorder. And as a person that has two neurodivergent disorders, with two mental health diagnosis, to further myself, you already know that I have ADHD and autism. What you don't know, I also have anxiety and depression. I also have those two. So yeah, it took, again, all that took me until my junior year of high school to figure out what is happening. Again, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is when it comes to noticing a lot of things in high school. I guess it's just that I think it's just because I only I don't know. I honestly don't know. Yeah. Thank you for joining in my podcast. Thank you for joining my podcast. That on only 12. Like I said, if you have caught up already, I don't have to explain much. But just recap. Um, Again, this month June is has three events, which are Pride Month, Juneteenth, and Men's Mental Health. Now they are caught up, in a way. Anyways, yeah, mental health is something that is highly looked down upon, especially in the male population. I have no clue why. I think that society only sees men as workers, so either as workers or as robots, one or the other. So when it comes to mental health, when it comes to men's mental health, looked as no, you don't have, not only as no, you don't have mental health. There's no such thing as mental health. You don't have it. It's not just that. It's also like yeah, we don't believe you. It's it's torture. In my experience, it is torture because not only I'm seen as a guy, which already has a lot of negative connotations with it. I'm going to discuss that another time. Not only I'm seen as a guy, I'm also seen as a black guy. So that's already so I already have generational trauma as well. If you don't know, generational trauma within the black community, basically being slaves, to white slave owners. Again, that is generational trauma. 100 plus years worth of generational trauma. So on that note, not only like I said, not only I identify myself as a male, I am also a black male, and I'm also a black male in a neurodivergent that has neurodivergent disorders, uh, di- yeah, disabilities. So you can already see how bad you can predict how bad I have and how bad I have it. Now, keep in mind when it comes to mental health, everyone has their own experiences, everyone has their own downfalls. Yeah, if anything, I really don't like talking about my own personal mental health because I have gone through a lot. Yeah, it is. I'm going to ignore that comment. I'm going to ignore that comment. There's no reason for you to make that comment whatsoever. Yeah, I'm just going to ignore that comment. If you're going to make rude comments about it, this is not a place and time for it. I'm telling you this right now. This is not a place and time for making for making remarks like that. Not a place and time. Do it on another time. Anyways, anyways, my experiences when it comes to mental health is is really traumatic, and quite frankly, I really do not like talking about it. But it has to be, but it is awareness. So even though that it is hard for me to talk about my past when it comes to mental health, it is necessary. So for a little bit of background, I'll well disclaimer, be I'm not gonna be saying so much. I'm not going to be saying so much. I'll try my best not to say a lot of stuff. So bear with me here. Anyways, my experience when it comes to mental health. Again, I've been diagnosed with autism, ADHD, anxiety, and depression in my junior of high school. in my junior, also my, I want to say my, also during my high school, in my high school life, um, I wasn't, I wasn't all there. I wasn't all there mentally because, like I said, like I said, um, I I didn't know how to process a lot of things until my junior year of high school. A lot of my time where I could have learned how to deal with it, but I didn't. All that time I have kept it up, like kept it bottled, kept it hidden from everyone because, like I said, as a there's already a bad connotation when it comes to men in general. Um, yeah, again, the society has told men that we're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to show emotion. If something hurts us, gotta brush it off. Yeah, mental health really matters when it comes to stuff like that because let me because from my experience, um, I have been in the psych ward 3 times. I've been in psych ward 3 times. Again, that's something I'm really don't like bringing up or saying, but like I said, this is something that that is important and needs to be talked about. So I've been into 2 different psych wards 3 times. Yeah, yeah, it probably does take true strength. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, 2 different psych wards 3 times. The first one I didn't like the psych ward. I didn't like my first psych ward because it was it was unstable. From my experience, it was unstable. That was an unstable environment. I hated it. I have bad experience with it. Granted, it was only for a week. I had to stay there for a week. For regardless, I had to stay there for a week with all my psych wards. I had to stay there for a week. Regardless, I don't like being in a psych ward. It brings for me it is anxiety. It gives me a lot of anxiety because it's something I'm not used to. Granted, 3 times, granted 3 times, but on different occasions. So I'm not used. So if I'm in an environment that I'm not used to, I'm going to get anxiety. I'm going to get anxiety. I'm going to start developing anxiety, and depending on how it is, my anxiety can either increase or decrease. So with the psych ward, for me, that brings up a lot of anxiety because one, I'm not used to it, so that's one. Two, even though I'm not the only person there, I'm not only sharing another. I'm not sharing the same room with another person with their own struggles. Which again, that does bring in more anxiety because I'm doing my own stuff, bunking with another person that's doing their own stuff, and they take it. And if they're physical, I can yeah, I me personally, I have no clue how far I can go when it comes to my own mental disabilities. I have no clue how far I can go. I mean, I do have a hint of it, but yeah, I have no clue how far I can go or how far I can take it when it comes to stuff like that. Um, anyways, anyways, yeah, psych wards gave me so much anxiety because of the first psych ward I've been to. Not only that, like I said, I'm new to it, so it brings us a lot of anxiety. Even though that we do have sessions, therapy sessions, I'm still bunking with another person that is going through their own stuff. And quite frankly, I rather be secluded in my own area. When it comes to psych ward, I prefer being in my own psych ward. I prefer being in my own room in a psych ward because at least I'll have time to process what's going on. But understandably, um, patients have to patients have to have bunkmates. Again, understandably. Um, Again, this is something I really don't like talking about. But yeah, I'm going to see if I can push through it. I might make this to 30 seconds, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on how much I'm willing to spew out. But anyways, psych wards again. The psych wards are different between buildings. Um, the yeah yeah Anyways, the first psych ward I really didn't like. Again, it was for me. It was unstable. It wasn't well for me. It wasn't well kept. A lot of people were getting into fights. If anything, within the week in my first psych ward, I saw like around one or two, like two fights, not in the same day, but within the week, I saw like around two fights, and I didn't like it. It got me a lot of trauma from it, where to the point where I prefer keeping my problems to myself. Now that was on instinct. Before that, it is unaware. It is like unawareness. Like it is before the psych ward for me. It was unawareness instinct to I have to keep everything to myself because of the first psych ward that I've been to. It is instinct. It is awareness instinct. Because in that situation I rather not talk about. I rather not. It's not. I rather not talk about it, but it's just like I rather keep to myself. Yeah, that's the better phrasing it. I rather keep to myself when it comes to psych wards because of that. And yeah, again, that is traumatic for me. For me, that's traumatic. Now the second psych ward, psych ward that I've been to is 10 times better. For me, it's 10 times better. It is well kept. Everyone minds their own business. Our therapy rooms is well kept as well. Not a lot of fighting and whatnot. And heck, I made friends. I made friends in the psych ward. Unfortunately, I cut them off. Unfortunately, I had to cut them off because either we weren't talking enough, or with me and one of them we weren't talking enough. So obviously it's just like it didn't last long. The other one I cut off because she was giving a lot of negative vibes. And I rather not deal with that because I'm changing. Because when I got out of the psych ward, I was changing for the better. I decided to change for the better, and I don't want negative people around me. But yeah. I know I said 3 psych words. Yeah, I know I said 3 times 2 psych words. Yeah, the second psych word is both my second and third. If anything, I'm not going too much into detail about why I was in the psych ward. I wouldn't go into details about it because, yeah, I don't want to. For me, I rather not. I'm going to keep strong on here of course, this is like me being like in a healthy way. Like I'm gonna keep strong for now. Then yeah, um, yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah, it is terrible. Yeah, it is terrible. If it wasn't terrible, there wouldn't be much for awareness. If the economic state of the world isn't terrible, we wouldn't have so much awareness. But because it is how it is, we have to have awarenesses. We have to have awarenesses. We have to have movements and awarenesses, stuff like that, because it is important. Anyways, like I said, I'm not going to get into the reason why. Not get into the reason why I was brought into the psych ward. Granted, the second and third time I was in the psych ward, it was my own. It was like for me, I was like, yeah, it was like out of my own, like out of my own. And granted, I the process of me going to the psych ward, it wasn't ideal. It wasn't ideal, but it was necessary because depending on how you go into the psych ward, depending on how you go into the psych ward, the second and third time I went to the psych ward, I went to my nearby ER, told them, hey, I'm having, well, no, that'll be my third time. The third time I went to the psych ward, I went up to the ER, told them what's going on, mentally. They said that they're going to transport me there via ambulance. Again, understandably why, because they don't want to, they don't want to see me hurt myself. The first time when I was in the psych ward, it was an evaluation. Me and my mom went out there together. I was confused on what's happening because again, my first time going to the psych ward. I thought I can be an outpatient, but turns out I was going to be inpatient. Again, pisses me off, but whatever. If anything, it should have been more. They should have explained it a little bit more. Another reason why I don't like the first psych ward I've been to, again, it was out of control. The psych ward in my first psych ward was again out of control. It wasn't maintained well enough to. It wasn't physically it wasn't physically well kept in my opinion. Again, fights were happening, and how they explained the process. It wasn't to my understanding. It was to a neurotypical understanding. It wasn't to my understanding. So when I got evaluated into the first psych ward, I was confused. Not only I was confused, I was terrified. Because again, being in the new environment, I'm not used to it. I'm not used to being in new environments. So within the first, so yeah, I didn't like it. Because of that, I don't like being in psych wards. Anyways, anyways, yeah, my first psych ward, it was an evaluation. Then they said that I'm going to be an inpatient. Yeah, the second time, the second time, I went to psych ward. It was I called what was it? Oh my goodness, why am I forgetting it? This is another thing why it is. This is another thing why it is important to. This is why mental health awareness is important, because important stuff, important information should be well known. Anyways, the second time I was in the psych ward. I called the crisis hotline. I called the crisis helpline. Hotline. I think it's hotline. Anyways, I called the crisis hotline. I told them what was going on. The police officer showed up to my location. Um, at the time, I was before I called the before I called the hotline. Oh yeah, it was a suicide hotline. Yeah, it was a suicide hotline. Um, but yeah, before I called them, before I called that hotline, I was walking around. Um, I was walking around my my neighborhood, and then I thought about it, and then I was like, no, I can't do it. For some reason, I can't do it. So I stopped by a bus stop. I called the hotline. Again, a police officer showed up. He was really helpful. Um, we talked. We talked. He transported me to an ER. Then the ER evaluated me to a psych ward. Then I was transported to the second psych ward that's nearby. Again, the second psych ward, I prefer to go to the second psych ward because, again, it is more well kept than my first psych ward. But yeah, actually, no, it wasn't a suicide hotline. It was a crisis hotline. But nonetheless, it does have the same vibe. But yeah, then again, the third time I went to the same psych ward, I went to the ER. I told them what's going on. They evaluated me to the same psych ward that I've been to, and from there, it's the same old same old. Stay there for the week. Stay there for the week. No electronics. I no electronics. No string belts. Yeah, so no strings, none of my personal electronics. Um, my shoes were off. I wasn't allowed to wear shoes that have strings. So yeah, they basically gave me. So yeah, I basically was there with my normal clothes, but without like strings, without strings and whatnot. And again, yeah, again, that's the second and third time I those two were my second and third time I went to the psych ward. It is really important to it is really important to have to have mental health awareness, not just not just mental health awareness, not just mental health awareness in general. And granted, men's mental health is subpar. It is literally subpar. Um, well, awareness wise, it is subpar because again, a lot of negative connotations when it comes to men and mental health. It is brushed off. They're brushed off like this. Again, a lot of things when it comes to a lot of people need to realize that this world doesn't just shouldn't just accommodate physical health. Granted, it is a lot easier to see physical health because it is like you're literally showing it. But again, mental health is also important. It is also important because anyone who has mental health, anyone that has mental health issues, we tend to keep it inside. We tend to hold it in until we can't anymore. Either we implode or explode. I'm not going to go into further details about it. You gotta think about it. You gotta think about it. Again, when it comes to mental health, if everyone who has experienced mental health, if keep it inside, either implode or explode. and I have nearly experienced that both on my own. More implode than explode. Yeah. Yeah. After I got out of the psych ward, it is regardless, I was doing therapy. Like regardless, even before I was doing therapy. At the same time, I'm not gonna lie, therapy can help so much. It has its limits. Therapy has its limits. Not gonna lie. Not only not Yeah, because just talking about it, it for me it helps a lot. Talking about it helps a lot. Oh, I forgot to mention. I was also on medications. Medications made it worse. Made my situation worse. My ADHD and autism medication didn't help at all. It just made my anxiety and depression stronger. Because of that, main reason why I had implode implode implosive and explosive thoughts, because of that, because of my medication. I explained to my therapist I don't like taking medication because it is a negative effect towards me. And yeah, she listened. I'm glad that she listened. I've been off of medication for I want to say like couple years, 2 3 years, and I haven't been to a psych ward ever since. I have not. Because again, me talking to my therapist helps more than taking medication. Because in my opinion, taking medication is just suppressing. It's a suppressant. That's in my case. I'm not sure about everyone else, but from my experience and from one of my friends' experience, it changed us for the worse. It changed us for the worse. And from my experience, like I said, it is a suppressant. It's suppressing how I feel, and yeah, it suppressed about how I feel, and it just made my depression a lot worse. It made my depression a lot worse. That's how I ended up in that situation. Main reason why I ended up in the psych ward in the first place, because of my medications, because of my ADHD medications, and my depression, and my depression medication, and my anxiety medication. Even though, as advertised, some of the depression medication literally says increase of depression, which is counterintuitive. Because again, it is counterintuitive. Because I'm trying to get rid of my depression, not make it worse. Because that is what it is. That's what, in my opinion, that is what depression medication is for. Is to not only decrease your depression, but also has a side effect of increasing depression, which doesn't, which is utter, which is utter bullshit. Because again, the goal of me getting rid of my depression is to get rid of my depression, not to make it worse. Again, my medications made me worse. So, with all that I said, American society needs to change. American society needs to change and be more accommodative for mental health. They need to put in more research for medication, for mental health medication, because again, even though that taking medication for depression, even though I was taking medication for depression, I'm still getting an increase of depression, again, which is counterintuitive. American society needs to do more research when it comes to stuff like that, because I don't want to be gaining, I don't want to be losing and gaining at the same time. I don't want to be losing my depression and gaining my depression at the same time. Because now I'm gonna, because if I kept on, because now I think about it, if I kept on taking my uh, antidepressants, my anxiety medications, my ADHD medications, if I kept on taking those medications, I would be going to, I'll be in like a total of 10 psych wards by now. If I'm thinking about it, it's a hypothetical, because I don't know. I don't know what happens if I continue taking my medications. I think that if I did continue taking my medications, it will be a lot worse for me. Not only I could have, not only I could be incarcerated, not, but it could be into a mental facility, not a psych ward, a mental facility for life. That's how I see it. If I kept on taking my medications, I could either be incarcerated, or I could be locked up. I could be locked up, or I could be in a in a mental facility. I am really glad that I did stop my medication. I am really glad that I did stop taking my medications, because I know that it will lead me down to a path where I'm not gonna be a functioning person in society. That's something that I know. It's not rocket for me. It's not rocket science to figure that out. It's something that I know that medication isn't beneficial for me. So again, American society needs to do a better job when it comes to mental health, and and quite frankly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it is when it comes to women's mental health. I'm not sure about that, because as to my knowledge, there is not a lot of negative connotation when it comes to women and mental health. If there is, if there is, please comment. Please comment if there is any negative connotation when it comes to women and mental health. But to my knowledge, to my knowledge, and yeah, to my knowledge, there's more negative connotation when it comes to men and mental health. Anyways, anyways, yeah. So, so the medications again needs to be researched a lot more. The medication, men, um, anxiety, depression, medication needs to be researched a lot more, because of the fact that it will increase depression. The side effects has increased depression. So again, that needs to be researched a lot more before being distributed. American society also needs to do a lot better when it comes to psych wards as well. Like I said, the first psych ward that I went to caused a lot of unnecessary trauma. Again, new to the facility, um, 2 fights I seen within a week, um, a a less than bare, well, nearly bare minimum um, stuff. Yeah, overall, that is overall the the first psych ward that I've been to wasn't a good one. The second one, however, again is a lot better. It's a lot better again 10 times because like I said, it is more clean there. It is more clean. Not a lot of people were too anxious about being there. Not a lot of fights. Yeah, there were a lot of arguments and confrontations, but no physical fights. And even if there was one, the staff there were on top of it. So in my eyes, the second psych ward I've been to, that is over the bare minimum. That is over the bare minimum, and I'm really glad that I went there because I came out as a new person, in a good way. In a good way, if that makes any sense. And again, so, and also American society also needs to drop the, oh, you're a man, you don't, oh, you're a man, you don't, there's no such thing as mental health, just walk or just do something else. The negative connotation when it comes to men and mental health needs to be dropped. Because as research comes in, as more and more research comes in, more and more the negative connotation has been disproven. So, the negative connotation when it comes to mental health in general needs to be dropped. Because that is something that is in my eyes that's what triggers people into committing suicide. It's because of the negative connotations when it comes to mental health in general. Ugh. Again, this is something that is hard for me to discuss about. But I'm still going to discuss about it. So, with all that being said, I am officially mentally drained. So now this is a open Q&A. Whoever's still here, this is an open Q&A. Which I highly doubt anyone is, but still. If you have any questions, ask away. But given the fact that there's not a lot of viewers, but yeah, if you have any questions, ask away. All right. Well, since there's no questions, I'm sorry cutting it off early. But like I said, this is something that takes a lot out of me. So, have a good night. Yada yada yada. Have a good night. drink water, and see y'all tomorrow. If I will be, able to recover, like mentally recover. But regardless, see y'all. See y'all either tomorrow or Friday. Take care.